Hi, and welcome to yet another session. I'm glad you could join me again. And on today's session, we'll be adding some animation to our login form. The you can actually see it. And let's do a short recap. So on our previous video, we created the login form that you're seeing. If it's your first time and you're interested in knowing how we created the login form, you can check the link in my channel. And the animation, we'll be adding it to our button such that when the user clicks on the button, it displays a loading animation. So don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell notification and stay tuned. This will be a very short session. It will be very interesting. So let's start. So I'll go ahead and look for my button. So we created a button and here it is, written the name Let's Game. Here it is. Let me cut it. I'll cut the whole text part and assign it to a variable. So final text is equal to so that's our text. The text is what was displayed inside our button. And next, we'll create our animation. But before we create an animation, there's something you need to know, especially if it's your first time doing Flutter. So for the app to know when to display the text and when to display the animation, you need to maintain the state. You need to keep record of the state such that you can shift the state, telling the program to display the text or the animation. So how do we keep track of the state? Number one, your widget needs to be a stateful widget. And as you can see, when you created this login form, it was initially a stateless widget. So you need to change this. So I'll create a stateful widget. So for the stateful widget, you need to override and create your state. So we are creating a state of our login form. So write the name of your class. In my case, I used login form. So this class is what was created here. So you're creating a state of this class. Then we create state. And this is a function. Then you give it the name of our new state, which will be our login form state. Login form state. So one thing you need to note, when declaring variables in Dart and Flutter, we have a way of differentiating the public variables and the private. By public, I mean that the variable can be accessed by classes and methods outside this class. But for private, it means that the variable can only be accessed by the methods and variables inside our class. So how do we differentiate? Use a, I don't know if it's called an underscore, but it's this dash. Yes. So you need to close that class. And we now need to create our state class. Class, our login state. Login form state. The name needs to match. Then it inherits from our login form, since it's the state of our login form. So state and you can see the error is gone. So once your widget is stateful, you can actually keep track and update the user interface. So here comes the interesting part. We'll go ahead and create our animation. We'll call it animation. We'll place it inside our container. We'll maybe give it a padding of 5. And for the child, it will be a circular progress indicator. So the circular progress indicator is one of the most basic animations. And so this video is actually suitable for the beginners. It's actually a good way for you to actually understand how we keep track of the state and we update the user interface. So we'll go ahead, we'll give it a background color of white to match our button. So colors dot white. Then next we'll give it a color of black. Colors dot to match our text. So we can also make changes to other values such as the stroke width. We'll give it maybe 6. So the stroke width is the thickness. Next is the stroke cap. The stroke cap but dot. Round. This gives it a rounded edge. And all these are constant since the values are not changing. So we have our two widgets. Our first widget is the text, which will be displayed before the user clicks. And our second widget is the animation, which will be displayed once the user clicks on the button. So let's go ahead. So next, we need to use a variable to indicate whether it is loading or not. So I'll go ahead and create a variable. For this variable, it will be a boolean. I'll call it is loading. and the initial value will be false. So next, we are going to use an if statement. For those who are new to this, the if statement checks whether the condition is met, and if the condition is met, you provide it with a default value, whereas if the value is not, if the condition is not met, you provide it another value. So how do we do this in Flutter? We'll go to our button. Where's our button? It is child. So we'll tell it to check whether it's loading, is loading. So in our case, we're not using the normal if statement. We're using the inline if statement. So you give it a variable, and one thing you need to note that the part before the question mark is the condition. So it's either give it a Boolean variable or you give it an expression that returns a Boolean. By Boolean, I mean true or false. In our case, so this tells the program, is it loading? If it's true, you give it the default value, which is the animation. Whereas if it's not true, you give it now our other value, text. Yes. And so we need a way of changing it such that when the user clicks on the button, it changes from the text to the animation. So how do we do this? We'll go ahead. So for this case, we'll be changing the state of the app from not loading to loading. And that's why we created a stateful widget. So how do we do this? Write your state. This is used in Flutter to keep track of the state and make changes in the state. And so inside it, you write the value that you're changing that will cause the UI to change. In our case, it is the is loading. And we'll assign it to true. So its initial value is false. So according to this statement, according to the statement, it will be false, meaning that the original value will be the text. Whereas if you change it to true, the animation will be displayed. Let me restart. Okay, so let's go ahead and click on the button. And you can see, actually quite nice. So we've already displayed our animation, but the animation looks too big. It's not proportional to the size of the button. And we can change this. I'll just go back to the animation and add some more padding. The padding will make it smaller. Then refresh this to see. Or maybe I could give it a height and a width. It looks like it's too big. That's a bit better. Now the last thing we'll do, we've already displayed this, but once you click it, nothing changes. We can make it such that whenever we click the button, it changes, it alternates from the animation to the text. So how do we do this? We'll go back to our set state, which alters the state of our app. and using the exclamation, repeat the same variable. Let me write it then explain. So the exclamation mark in that is used to mean not, the opposite, meaning that if it's loading to is true, when you add the exclamation mark, it will be the opposite, false. And vice versa, where if it is false, if you add the exclamation mark, it turns to true. Meaning that whenever you click the button, it will be alternating from true to false and false to true. So let's refresh. So once I click, you see the text returns. Once I click again, the animation, again the text, again the animation. Thank you for staying tuned. I know the video is short. I hope you understood and I hope you enjoyed. And also don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell notification. Let's meet in the next video. And in case of any suggestion, feel free to comment below and like the video for more people to get such content.